Welcome to Swinger University, your horizontal enrichment program. Bringing you an educational podcast about swinging. Here are your hosts, Ed and Phoebe.
Welcome back to Swinger University. I'm Ed.
And this is Phoebe.
Today we're going to talk about consensual or ethical non-monogamy. How do you define consensual or ethical non-monogamy? We cover different types and dive into the upside and downside of the swingers' non-monogamy.
We'll start off by our definition of non-monogamy. It is an umbrella term, actually, for a practice or philosophy of a non-dyadic, intimate relationship. It can be sexual, emotional, or both. It does have a negative connotation in the following way, which is why some people put the word consensual or ethical in front of non-monogamy. The negative connotation comes from the acceptance that monogamy is the norm. It's moral and it's therefore incorrect, wrong, or immoral to be non-monogamous.
Right. The other connotation with that is being in a monogamous relationship, but stepping outside the bounds of your relationship without the consent of your partner. So that's where the consensual non-monogamy comes in, but also ethical because you guys are both participating willingly.
Right.
So let's bust into some of the forms of non-monogamy. I didn't know about some of these. We're aware of a couple because we're in the lifestyle, but
Phoebe did some research.
All right, we'll start with a basic one. Casual relationship. Two unmarried people, emotional and or sexual, with each other. It's casual. They may have one or more.
Hello, swipe.
Next.
Hello. I have Twitter on the brain.
The other T, Tinder.
That's it. I've been tweeting all day, so. You've got your group marriage. Several people are considered to be married to one another. And under group marriage are two different definitions. You've got your line families, which is a group marriage intended to outlive its members by adding more spouses. And then you have polyfamilies, which is similar to group, but not all partners considered themselves married to all members. That I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's not legal, at least in the United States, to be legally wed to multiple people.
Right.
The polygamy aspect, but there are plenty of people who basically have long-term emotional commitments and basically their life partners with multiple people.
But it sounds like there's a hierarchy in there where you've got those individuals who are actually married to one another, and then those individuals that don't consider themselves married.
Right.
Well, actually, it says married to all members. Yeah, I kind of get that. That makes sense. You're married to the primary. You're dedicated to the primary.
Right.
You're not dedicated to all.
Right.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
One of my favorites, group sex or orgies. So we've got two or more, emphasis on the more.
Yep. And the next one is also your favorite.
I do like this one. Ménage à trois. A sexual arrangement between three people can be domestic.
Then you have your open relationship / marriage, where one or both members is committed in the relationship, and they express freedom to be sexually active with others. And under that comes swinging, which is similar to the open relationships, but typically it's an organized social activity with some form of group sex. However, I will say in a social setting, there typically is group sex involved or somewhere on the premises. But a lot of the community will get together and they'll partner off as a threesome or a foursome or I guess what's considered group sex, 2 or more. Well, there you go.
Well, yeah, three, probably 3 people or more. But yeah. The interesting thing is that an open relationship is usually kind of loosely defined, where the partners don't usually play together. They're kind of off on their own, and they can kind of do whatever they want. In other words, like the door's open to just go.
Right.
And do their thing. They date separately. They've got
dates.
Yeah.
They travel with other partners.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Versus swinging, and at least for most of the people that we know and ourselves, we practice together. Mm-hmm. So it's all for one and one for all at the same time.
Yep.
We like to watch.
Then you have polygamy. One person in a relationship has multiple partners. And then you have polyandry, where the woman has multiple husbands. Polygyny, where the man has multiple wives. A plural marriage, which is a form of polygyny associated with Latter-day Saint movement. And your last, well, it's not under polygamy, but there's a last definition called relationship anarchy, where no one is bound by set rules.
Open season. Everything's just
anything
on the table.
Which is kind of like
no boundaries.
Open to me. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I get the impression this is just free love. Like there's not even established hierarchy or relationships. It's just
like a commune.
Free for all.
Oh.
Yeah.
That could have its pluses and minuses.
Exactly.
So some of the upsides are this allows freedom of exploration while in a relationship. It improves communication, love, and commitment. It stretches your personal growth through self-awareness, and it will magnify anything that isn't working or needs to be addressed in your relationship. So this can be a plus and a minus. And this upside I'm talking about is the ethical or consensual non-monogamy. So obviously the downside is going to be, anything that isn't working in your relationship will be magnified. And we've seen, in several relationships in the community where it can be kind of a commitment avoidance, escape from reality. It tends to breed insecurity, jealousy, martyrdom if you're sacrificing yourself to meet the needs of the other. And, historically, the swinger community, they're only in it for about 18 months and then they get out. So we've seen a lot of couples start and stop.
Yeah. We've been in it long enough to see several generations, if you will, of couples come through.
Yeah. And
there are some that have been there as long as we have, and they're still there.
I know.
It's kind of fun.
It's lovely.
Some good friends of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Mental hurdles and judgments. Well, whether you come out or not, you may find yourself having these thoughts. You're being taken advantage of. We've heard this as an observation of other couples. Looks like she's in it because he's making her, or he's kind of getting dragged along, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
don't you get jealous all the time? This is a common thing that we've heard. And the answer is not usually, but sometimes it happens. Now, if you are a jealous person, you get jealous all the time, swinging's probably not for you.
Right. That's not going to work out well.
STDs or STIs. We just did a whole episode on sexually transmitted diseases. Yeah, it's a risk, but if you practice safe sex, you're using condoms and you're testing yourself frequently, you can reduce your risk. This is a good one. What if your partner leaves you?
It happens sometimes.
It does happen. Now, if we go back to one of our earlier examples, this escape, this feeling of not committed, that's probably a sign that the relationship's having some issues to begin with. So, if your partner leaves you over something like swinging, it's probably not the swinging.
Right. It just kind of accelerated.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not even sure why we're covering this, but there we go. What will God think?
Well, I mean, these are some of the questions that you may may have in your head. What if someone asked me this question? And there's a fair share of swingers out there that are religious. They still go to church, and they may be conflicted with this. We've heard podcasts where some of our swinger community is conflicted.
Absolutely. And this is definitely something that you'll have to process in your own head and deal with your partner.
Or maybe you were brought up in a particular religious organization, and those set of rules and constructs are resurfacing. I mean, maybe you don't practice today when you're starting off swinging, but you might be surprised that those patterns, behaviors, thoughts, things of that nature will creep up when you embark on this adventure.
It does happen.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Isn't this just a way of sugarcoating cheating? Well, that's where the consent comes in, and that's where the ethical component comes in on this. Everybody's in this and on the same page. So typically cheating on your spouse has to do with going behind their back and lying to them about what's going on. They don't know. You're doing it in secret. You're doing it on the side. And that's not consent. This
sugarcoating thing, I mean, I could just hear some of my girlfriends, say that if I were to come out. They may not believe me. There's certain people that you feel safe coming out to, and certain people that you're like, oh, hell no. There's no way. That would just wreck the friendship.
Right.
So,
especially those friends who are having issues with their current partners and going through those challenging life experiences that we often go through in relationships.
Yeah. All right. So 4 critical things needed to be successful in ethical, consensual non-monogamy. You want to have your informed consent and honesty. Your partner must know you're seeing other people. I mean, that's the whole point.
Right.
Consent. Hello. Informed.
You can't consent to something if you don't know it's going on.
Right. If you both aren't on the same page about it and are okay with it, it's not going to work out well. And your boundaries and limitations must be agreed on. Sometimes they can be broken in the heat of the moment, But that's where number 2 comes in, which we're going to talk about in a second. Do you want to elaborate on like what type of scenario could occur where your boundary or limitation might be broken?
Well, we had that happen pretty early on when we got into the lifestyle, where we went into the party with a set rule, where we knew exactly what was going to happen. We had it all planned out. Everything was going to be like this. 10 minutes into it, we're all hot, rolling around. We look at each other, we're like, do you want to do something more? And both of us nod vigorously and say, yes.
Yeah.
So it's more of boundary pushing, or you're comfortable in the moment and
Right.
you assumed that you weren't going to be comfortable when you went into it.
Right.
And then,
It's like going to the roller skating rink. You know, you're terrified. You're like, all right, I'm just going to step out onto the rink. I'm going to take a few steps and then I'm off.
right.
And you're like, wow, that was really fun. I think I'll go halfway around the circle. You go halfway and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you decide to go around the whole circle. But the whole time you're doing this with your partner and you're agreeing to the next level in the moment.
Right.
Now, it can be beneficial. It can also be detrimental because hormones are racing, adrenaline, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, yeah. And then you get the next day and you're like,
What did I do?
you know, it felt good in the moment, but I'm a little not okay with that today. And that's where the communication comes in, which is number 2. Regrouping. If a boundary is crossed, you know, it's not malicious. So the next day you have this regroup session. You're like, you know, it was great last night. I had such a good time, but today I'm feeling a little funny about it. And you may not know why. You may not know how to articulate it in that moment. You may need another 24 hours to kind of sit with it. And then that day or the following day, you might be able to articulate what it was that was a little off to you. Maybe you didn't get enough attention. Maybe there's a little bit of envy going on. And you talk that stuff through with your partner and then you move on. So you're going to be, obviously, hopefully, confident and comfortable saying what you need to say about that situation. And you work towards a mutually beneficial understanding that suits you both. One of you may be more comfortable or confident or flirty than the other, but negotiating through this and expressing your desires and your fears and supporting one another is essential.
Absolutely. And when we've had experiences where we've had to process it afterwards, it's just listening. It's understanding what happened in the moment, or a way to approach it the next time to make your partner more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Awareness. This is also essential to this process. It's not a journey for those who are blind and unwilling to grow and change and analyze their thought processes and their being. I mean, if you're the classic, well, they say an old dog can't change.
Learn new tricks.
That's it. Then, yeah, there's no way you could be in this. I mean, I suppose there could be, but it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's a whole, I mean, think about it. You're challenging any kind of thought process and structure laid out by your religious upbringing, right?
Right. Social constructs, community rules and guidelines.
Yes.
Even
you can't share it with anyone, so you have this huge secret.
Right.
So, I mean, and not to mention family, you got to keep it from them. I mean, it's, you know.
Most people don't understand it. And so trying to explain it to them, if they'll even let you explain and not just immediately freak out. Yeah. it's challenging.
It can be a lot. And then the last part is just letting go. How we knew early on that we consciously chose to be with one another every day. In fact, it was in our wedding vows, and it keeps us on our toes all the time.
Yeah.
We still date and dress up for one another. Maybe not so much now during COVID. I try to get out of my robe by 10.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
A little too many pajamas for both of us.
I know. I'm in my
just
pajamas
saying.
right now. But, it is kind of late. I know.
Yeah.
But while we know deep down that Ed and I are partners for life, we also appreciate each other daily. We don't control one another, but we want the best for each other. And this is the part of the journey that gets really interesting. Seeing your partner expressing joy and pleasure with another can be extremely sexy. If you can get there, it's very sexy. I'm not saying it's easy. For some people, it's like breathing air. For me, it took me about 6 years to get there. But it didn't dissuade or distract me from the enjoyment that I was getting. There was a lot of other factors that were pleasurable and, wonderful.
Yeah, we had some really fun times.
I wouldn't say that was my primary mode for doing it. A lot of people say, oh yeah, that's like their first thing. And I'm like, no, that is not my first thing. But now, yeah, it's pretty damn sexy.
Like they say, consent is sexy.
It is. It's pretty hot. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Ed? Wilbur. No?
Yeah, it's been fun. We've definitely challenged monogamy for the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen a lot of people struggle with it. So it's a growth opportunity. It's an experience. It's an adventure. But you've got to go into it together. And like we said, those 4 guidelines are really key to making it through this.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in trying this adventure...
I thought you were just going to solicit our listeners. So if you're interested in this, just drop us a line.
That too. Feel free to contact us through swingeruniversity.com.
Yes. Leave us some feedback.
Messages.
Yes.
We'd love to hear some stories. We've actually heard some great stories from some of our listeners.
Oh, yeah. Check out our webpage. We posted a bunch of listener email. Of course, we keep everything 100%.
Super anonymous.
Yes. Confidential. And we've got a lot of great feedback, too, that we posted up there. So, yeah, feel free to peruse, drop us a line, rate us on iTunes, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, have a safe and healthy, 2020 if you ever get back out of your house.
That's right. And one day we'll all be able to practice consensual non-monogamy again.
That's not virtual.
That's not virtual. But in the meantime, you can catch up on all of the Swinger University podcasts and learn some new tricks in the comfort of your own home.
Absolutely.
So enjoy and stay safe.
Good night. Before you turn off our podcast to take care of all the vanilla things pulling you away, please reach out and give us a review. I am the first to admit that it's much easier to give a 5-star rating, which we appreciate, but if you could take 43 seconds to type a review, we would love it. If you want to share a personal story, ask us questions, or share your comments, you can contact us at swingeruniversity@gmail.com. Check us out at swingeruniversity.com, where you can find links to our Twitter and Instagram feeds. Thank you so much for listening to Swinger University, your horizontal enrichment podcast.